Now it's time for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning with Dr. Constance Ikwoku. Good morning, Dr. Constance.
Good morning, the lady in black.
That's fire. The two of us.
Yes, and Gwenga is in the middle.
Yeah.
Are you excited?
The black.
Are you excited to be in between these two wonderful women?
Two beautiful ladies. Anti-lucky.
Oh, you are. All right, good to see both of you. How are you guys?
Good,
I'm
thank
good.
you. Good. Midweek.
Nice to see you.
Yes.
Right on fire.
Thank you very much. Midweek, it's great. All right, let's look at those stories that are shaping the agenda for you today. We'll be kicking off with this day newspaper. The major themes on front pages today are regional security and foreign intervention, such as Nigeria's proactive regional security posture. There's economic fragility manifesting in currency instability. Depreciation of the naira continues to be top news, representing everyday economic hardship for citizens and pressure on imports, inflation and livelihoods. There's focus on oil production increase, arrests of former public officials for money laundering, internal security and human rights concerns, and public accountability and oversight. This day goes with that piece on the foiled coup in Benin Republic and the Nigerian Governors Forum declaring that indeed the president staved off a major security threat to Nigeria. In other news, Governor Sim Fubara of Rivers State has finally moved to APC, while Adeleke of Osun State defects to Accord Party. This day also reports that NNPC crude production hits a record 355,000 barrels per day. Moving on to Daily Sun, the Senate unanimously granted approval for President Bola Tinubu's request to send Nigerian troops air and ground to Benin Republic after the neighboring country's government asked for help in quelling a recent coup attempt. The deployment is framed as part of the regional peace stabilization effort under ECOWAS. The vote triggered strong reactions, with some lawmakers praising the decision as a defense of democracy, while others voiced concern about deeper regional entanglements. Also here in Daily Sun, Gumi stirs fresh controversy by claiming that abduction of children is a lesser evil than killing soldiers. In essence, he is still advocating negotiation with terrorists when Minister of Defense says that is not going to be happening going forward. Senate probes 15 billion naira Safe Schools Fund and queries 6.2 billion naira share for the police. NNPC breaks that 36-year jinx, as the report says it has increased barrels of production per day, oil production. Daily Trust captured that conflicting mood, reporting the praises and flack over deployment of troops to Nigeria's troubled Benin Republic neighbor. The Daily Times goes for Rivers State Governor Sim Fubara, the campaign, as well as the Osun State Governor, who has also moved from his party, the PDP. Both men were in the same party. Daily Independent reflects on shipping and the reality that indigenous shipping fleets are almost on the verge of collapse due to lack of disbursement of cabotage vessel financing fund. On mining, Minister Dele Aleka announces over $2 billion inflows into lithium and rare earth projects as Nigeria unveils lucrative mining incentives to lure investors. New Telegraph turns attention to former Attorney General Abubakar Malami, rearrested by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. He is said to be investigated for 18 different offenses, including money laundering, abuse of office, and terrorism financing. He is also being probed for inability to account for the recovery of $346.2 million Abacha loot through a Swiss bank and the island of Jersey, as well as a 10 billion naira investment in schools, hotels, and rice mills in Kebbi State. A lot going on there with Malami. Also, we note that PDP has only 5 governors left following a spate of defections to the ruling party. And as the Christmas season approaches with high volumes of travel, Senate is probing skyrocketing fares. Minister of Aviation Festus Keyamo summons airlines. It's a good move, but will that change anything? We'll have to see. Vanguard newspaper highlights the federal government limiting bidders of its 50 oil blocks located in onshore, shallow water and deep offshore areas to a maximum of 2 oil blocks each. Leadership tells us this morning that employers failed to enroll 73.23 million workers for contributory pension scheme. And finally, for local papers, The Punch writes about alleged $42 billion oil revenue shortfall, with governors and the NNPC at daggers drawn. Another headline notes a fatal incident in Northeast where some women were killed in Adamawa State. The army has clarified that militia groups, not soldiers, killed the women. Let's go to the international headlines. The Times this morning leads with a proposed major policing overhaul. The government plans to merge the current 43 police forces in England and Wales into roughly a dozen. This would become the biggest shake-up since the 1960s. Daily Mail focuses on a damning report by the National Audit Office revealing that the government lacks reliable data on how many asylum seekers have disappeared and saying the real cost of the asylum system is uncertain. Daily Mirror front page coverage draws attention to pandemic-era support funds. The paper reports that up to £10.9 billion may be essentially lost due to fraud or error, with limited chance of recovery. The newspaper highlights concerns among defense experts that recent remarks by Donald Trump calling European nations decaying and weak could destabilize transatlantic defense cooperation. And still on Ukraine, Financial Times front page covers that US-backed peace proposal, with Trump giving Zelensky days to respond to the peace deal. The deal involves territorial compromises in exchange for security guarantees and economic aid. And finally, on that matter, Metro.co.uk carries coverage of that fallout from Trump's remarks about Europe, lashing out at them and noting growing concern that Europe, and by extension the UK, may be forced to bear more defense burden. The Guardian focuses on Prime Minister Keir Starmer calling on Europe to halt rise of populism by curbing human rights laws. And we've all heard the story that in Australia, reactions continue following social media ban for teenagers under 16. Now let's break down what these headlines mean and how they affect citizens. Returning to this day newspaper. There are multiple legs to this Benin Republic story. But let's begin with the NGF declaring support. That's the Nigerian Governors Forum, declaring support for President Tinubu, saying he nipped in the bud a key security threat to Nigeria by intervening when called to do so. Senate also approved the president's request to deploy troops to Benin Republic. The president said the request followed urgent appeal from that country for exceptional and immediate air support from Nigerian armed forces. ECOWAS has praised Nigeria for its role, just as France has revealed that it provided intelligence and logistics support. That's quite a bit of... you can now see why the Alliance of Sahel States are pissed with Nigeria, literally.
The picture is becoming clearer.
Yes. Benga, a quick thought on that.
Now we can see that France is becoming more conspicuous in the evolving political landscape in West Africa and particularly in Nigeria. It just bothers me why France that failed to stamp out in its strong alliance with countries along the Sahel and the Gulf of Guinea, its failure to stamp out the activities of the violent extremists is now coming up to take the shine now. It's for me, it leaves a cautious approach. But when we look at the prompt reaction to President Tinubu in the foiled coup attempt in Benin Republic, we could see a very prompt action against ECOWAS that have been very reactive in the last couple of days. When you look at what has happened in Guinea-Bissau, the coup in Guinea-Bissau, and some other countries, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, pulling out from the ECOWAS of states. But now we can see that in line with the ECOWAS protocol that was signed in Dakar, I think the focus has been more of, they have been more proactive towards protecting democratic institutions and very silent and very sloppy in preserving governance, which is the cry of the people. You could see that this fragility in governance occur because of the dissatisfaction of the people and the quality of governance offered the people, and that gives the opportunity for the military troops to take control of power. Okay. So when you look at this one, I think it's in line, but we would like to see President Tinubu sustain that promptness in his reaction to external or the border security issues with our neighboring country, Benin Republic, and address the internal security challenge too within Nigeria.
Just a moment, Yolanda. Let me share more on this so that you can then jump in. So there's a developing row, and conflict, across the Sahel and with Nigeria. So we know that the Alliance of Sahel States have accused Nigeria of violating their airspace, saying one of Nigeria's military jets landed in Burkina Faso Monday without clearance. This came amid Nigeria's deployment of fighter jets and ground troops to Benin Republic to foil that coup. Those 11 Nigerian military personnel were said to have been arrested for allegedly violating the airspace, as I said, but Nigeria denies breaching any airspace regulations, saying the aircraft made an emergency landing due to technical issues. The Nigerian officials were detained, but we're now hearing that they've been released. There's also a story that the aircraft owned by Nigerian Air Force was actually on another mission, was on its way to Portugal and it just had to land. So there's more also. Military authorities in Niger have announced restriction on goods from Nigeria, citing security concerns. Now, all goods coming from Nigeria must be unloaded and thoroughly inspected. Goods with valid documentation from recognized ports will be allowed to offload at final destination. And an evolving story with different elements in that mix.
And we'll wait for the elements to unravel themselves as time goes. But looking back at what we're currently faced with right now, we know that the president wrote to the Senate looking for approval to deploy these troops. So this is actually a good move because Nigeria shares very close ties with Benin Republic, and because of their proximity to Nigeria, it's in Nigeria's best interest to make sure that they step in and help. One thing that Nigeria is known for across Africa, I think, is that it has been sort of like a big brother to other African nations. If you remember, Nigeria has stepped in for South Africa during the apartheid and as well during the civil war of Sierra Leone and Liberia as well. So it's, as I said before, it's in our best interest because, we don't want to start having refugees trooping into the country that we are already struggling with our own problems in the nation. We are having all these terrorist attacks, all these banditry cases. We can't expect to allow something that we can nip in the bud quite early to escalate to a level that we're not able to manage.
Well, Yolanda, not everyone is feeling that's a big brother that you spoke about. So let's look at what is going on, because it is a frosty relationship right now between Nigeria and a couple of countries in West Africa. Let's remind ourselves that alliance of Sahel states is a mutual defense and economic bloc formed by military-led governments of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso in 2023. The mission to counter instability, terrorism, and perceived Western influence, moving towards regional self-reliance, away from former colonial ties like France, and organizations like ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States. So the key word here is self-reliance, away from Western influence organizations, which means that they see ECOWAS as having or as being influenced by Western powers, particularly France. And while the row over whether Nigeria violated their airspace or not is there, the bigger issue is lack of trust and disappointment with Nigeria, a so-called big brother in the region. And we know that the historical ties between all of these countries predate any colonial power, whether France or Portugal or the rest of them. So what is more important, our relationship with neighboring countries, with the region, with the continent, or Western powers? And so the incident underscores France's lingering influence in the Sahel. And we can see France now owning up and revealing that it actually provided logistical support and intelligence to Nigeria and ECOWAS to foil that coup in Benin Republic. So you can see France encouraging Nigeria to go on, and Nigeria having closer relationship with France, and the Sahel countries saying that, you know, at the end of the day, this is not what they want to see. So France losing a lot of its hold in that region, or in the West African region, and fighting, you know, to come back and hold it and become closer to Nigeria. So whether, you know, France's influence is direct or perceived, it does complicate Nigeria's diplomatic balancing act, forcing Abuja to navigate between maintaining this regional leadership and friendship and avoiding the image of being a proxy for Western power. So, evolving story, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more coming out from that particular mix. Okay, let's see the second story. We can now pull up the Daily Times. Rivers State Governor Sim Fubara comes to the APC, and a court party receives Governor Ademola Adeleke. Let me quickly read what the National Publicity Secretary of PDP said. Ini Ememobong, Governor Fubara willingly traveled the path that took him to this destination. Having done so voluntarily, he cannot turn around and accuse our party or any other person or group of abandoning or not protecting him. While a person who is at a crossroad of threats of existential proportion will most likely suffer from temporary amnesia caused by trauma, the governor should have nothing less than praise for our party. He went on and on. In the interest of time, let me just stop there. But what's happening in Rivers State? I think it's a big blow, really big blow to the PDP. Wenga, very quickly.
Indeed. We've seen a replay of political and state capture, but that's also the reality of political survival, because the governor of the state had said that he's doing this in the welfare of the people and the progress of the state.
Really?
And you also look at the fact that the PDP, the reality is that no one wants to travel a crucial journey with a dysfunctional vehicle. And that's the reality many of these PDP leaders find themselves in. It's becoming inevitable for them. When you look at the fact that now they have just 5 governors remaining in the PDP, it shows that APC, under the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has really shown skillful politicking, but the undertone puts democracy under threat, because gradually we are drifting towards a one-party state, and we know that that would be an aberration of democracy. That would be a big setback to democracy that we've nurtured since 1999. This is a very critical time that we need to try our best, put everything in order to safeguard the nation's democracy, because the way things are looking now is like the country is riding on a dangerous precipice.
You know, for a lot of the people who stuck out their necks for Governor Sim Fubara over the bullying and overbearing influence and destabilization from Minister Nyesom Wike, they feel a little bit, or they may feel a little bit disappointed that now he has had to capitulate, essentially. It's good you use the word political survival, but because this is what it is. But you can also say that he has an option to resign honorably. We know that he would have been removed from office if the president didn't intervene by imposing that emergency rule. The Rivers State House of Assembly members were going to impeach him. He would have been gone. But the president saved him politically. I think that is why he has now decided to repay the president, if I may use that word, by joining the ruling APC.
And I think it's just a coincidence that the state of emergency thing happened, because even other states, even other states that were not having a state of that didn't have state of emergency defected.
Okay, so
we are looking at the political reality of the political survival of these PDP leaders in view of the parties being deeply fragmented and fractionalized.
Well,
so I think that to drive the 2027 election, already the leader of PD, we don't know whether it's PDP or APC, well, yes, Wiki, a political power broker in the state, is in bed with the APC leadership. So I don't see how Governor Similai Fubara would have survived staying in the PDP, except on terms with Nyesom Wike.
And that's why I said he had the option to also resign, Honorable, if
that he was on.
Well, it's not in our culture. Again, that presents a problem. Again, that presents a problem.
So we have a culture of sit-tight leaders, actually, and it's very unfortunate.
So this has, sort of revealed his strength of character or none of it. And like you said, it presents a problem that everyone is now on the same road to the ruling party.
But he also says that PDP failed him. So I don't know. That confuses me a bit.
No, I said no one wants to ride in a dysfunctional vehicle for a crucial. He's going for a second term. So he needs to consider his political survival, and he needs to consider his political future. So I don't think anyone with a fractured state, deeply fractured state, the PDP has found itself in. Nobody will want to take that chance.
So we have Governor Ademola Adeleke,
Same case, different party.
Well, his party is, this new party is a relatively unknown party.
Party.
Let me see. We have the national chairman is Barrister Maxwell Mbudem, and the national secretary is Dr. Adebukola Ajaja. Relatively unknown. I don't see, what he does with this party, except, he relies on the incumbency factor, to fight against the more established PDP and APC in the state. We have to move quickly to the international headlines, where we have Australia age restriction on social media, the first country to do so in the world.
And it's really good that they've done it. I think this we've been having this conversation for months on the sidelines, where they've been discussing about how they're going to have this social media ban for children under the age of 16 years old. Now, it's good to note that the children are not going to be penalized. The responsibility of this lies with the platforms themselves. Now, these platforms are actually expected to block users under the age of 16 or face severe civil penalties. These platforms that will be banned are Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, and others. But platforms such as WhatsApp and Google Classroom have managed to, safely be out of the mess, as they are still allowed to be used. Now, the government says that the aim of this new law is to reduce children's exposure to addictive or harmful content. Now, hopefully other countries will follow suit, and this is a wonderful example by Australia to protect our children and their fragile minds in this fast-paced society that we now currently live in.
Well, if you watched the announcement yesterday by the Australian Prime Minister, it was quite funny. He was there, asking the kids to drop your phones, go and learn a new skill, learn an instrument, spend quality time with your parents and your family members, and do something else other than scrolling endlessly on social media. So it sounded like the advice that a parent will give to their children. So however well-intentioned this policy is, it's already divided the country. For some saying it protects the mental well-being and welfare of children, and others saying that it borders on, debate, over rights, digital rights, and the ability of parents to make a choice, the ability of the young people to make to be able to have their digital rights. So critics say this could lead to excessive government control over online spaces. But at the end of the day, it is a bold move by Australia, and it will become a test case for the entire world on stricter global
Yes, 100%.
regulation of tech giants who have been accused of failing in their responsibilities. So even it also sets up a broader debate about balancing that protection of rights and digital freedom, as well as helping kids who are very easily impressionable and need protection from the World Wide Web or the internet.
Actually, we can't shy away from the invasive influence of social media in this current generation.
Yes.
It calls for a deep concern. While I might not outrightly support that age restriction, but there is a need for a level of regulation in the use, because the impactful influence of the social media on the younger ones is quite it leaves very disturbing concern.
Indeed.
Well, let's see how that pans out in the long run. Those were your headlines for today.